Hey everyone, welcome. This is going to be our first lecture on strings. This is going to be a two-part lecture. We're going to have the first one in this video and the next one in the next video. So let's talk about strings. What exactly are strings? Strings are essentially a sequence of characters. Okay, so a character, we're going to talk about the three different types of characters, in my opinion, right over here. Before we do that, if you want to know examples of strings, it's what I'm doing right now. I'm talking. I'm talking in strings, okay? I'm not talking in integers. I'm talking in words. Words are strings, okay? But there are other ways we can print strings. So let's look at what a sequence of characters really means and what are characters. So there's three different types of characters. The first one are basic letters, like letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, and then, they're uppercase, capital A, capital B, capital C, capital D, and all the way through the alphabet. So those are letters, right, listed in the alphabet. Next, we're going to look at digits. This is going to be, for those of you who think strings are more just words, right? Strings are like what we're speaking. We can't speak an exclamation point and hashtag. We can say those, but we can't physically speak those. It doesn't matter, right? We can have strings in Python that consist of digits and symbols. So digits are single number, non-negative integers. So there's only 10 digits. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those can also be considered strings. Everything on this page can be considered a string if we do something specific to it, which I will discuss in a bit. So those are digits. Those can also be considered strings. Those can also be considered numbers, but in this video, we're going to be focusing on how they can be considered strings. Well, actually, in the next video, we will be. And then we have symbols. So symbols like exclamation point, hashtag, slash, caret, asterisk, period, parenthesis, dash, and more, right? The only symbol that we want to be careful with as considering a string, or a character actually, is a backslash, okay? We're going to talk in a bit about the special types of things that backslashes can do when you're printing something, right? So as I said before, examples of strings are things like hello, hi, 123, 1.2, dollar, percent, capital H, lowercase h, 1, caret, 1%, right? So there can be some really complicated strings. So let's go into the code part, right? So strings are pretty easy to grasp, but let's move on to how can I create a string? So like I said in the last video, we're not really going to be running anything this line. We're just going to be showing how exactly we can signify something as a string. And to do that, all you have to do is put whatever you want to be a string in quotes. So we can put hello, we can put hi, we can put, as I said before, 1, 2, 3. And if you want to really understand why this is not a number, let's look at it when we do 1, 2, 3. So these, you can see Python highlighted this in blue, but Python highlighted this in green. So Python likes to highlight different things as different stuff for different data types. So when we highlight it as a green, Python is signifying that this is the number 1, 2, 3, and this is the string 1, 2, 3. All right. So that's just a little thing I wanted to show you there. You can have strings like exclamation point, hashtag, caret, and it's also a string. Okay. We can also create strings by using a single quote. We don't have to use double quotes. We can also use a single quote. We can do Java. We can do hello. We can do hi. We can do 1, 2, 3. So those are all single quotes, right? I'm not going to run this, but those are just ways we can create a string. Putting whatever we want in double quotes or single quotes, right? That's pretty simple. Now we're going to talk about escape characters in printing. So remember when I just talked about that backslash and we need to be careful about using it in our strings? Let's look at why. So let me print hello, right? So this is how we print a string. It's the same thing as we did last video. Remember the print function? We just put whatever we want between the parentheses and it will print. Okay, so let's look at what happens if I put maybe like a backslash n, right? Whoa, it separated it into two lines, right? So what is this backslash n? Why didn't it just print ap backslash n llo like it should have? This is a string, right? Well, the backslash n is something called an escape character. So this, when read in strings and the print function, does special stuff. Okay, so it specifically only works when we're using the print function, okay? If we just type it regularly, nothing will happen to it. But the print function, as looking through whatever we're trying to print, we'll see this backslash n and do an escape character. And the backslash n essentially means create a new line between what comes before it and after it. And you can see it exactly did that. So we have a new line as HE and another one as LLO. Okay? We can even do \T. So this will create a tab, right? So those are just some simple things you want to know about why we don't like to really use backslash that much in our strings when we're printing. So this is a tab, okay? So we put HE tab LLO. So if we go back to new line, maybe is there a way that we can ignore this? Like what if you really want to use a backslash and you don't want us to do this? Well, all you have to do is type in an R before that, an R before the string, and it'll ignore any of the escape characters, and as you can see, it just printed HE \n LLO. Same thing for \T. It just printed exactly what we typed in. So that's what we can do. If we don't want to do escape characters, we can put an R before. Alright, so those are escape characters in printing. So now the question is, how can we combine multiple strings? Alright, so let me just do an example. Let's print. This is basically the first thing anyone will teach you when you're coding. We'll do some hello world. So we have a hello world, right? This is one string. Maybe though we don't want to store hello world as one full string. Maybe we want to store hello as one string and then world as another string, right? Well, to do that, all we have to do is print hello plus space plus world. So you might be wondering, whoa, what are we doing here? We're adding strings? How are we going to add strings? Well, if we press enter, all it does is it basically whenever we use the plus symbol with numbers, it's called addition. When we use it with strings, it has a special term called concatenation, right? Concatenation is basically just combining multiple strings. So if we look at what happened, we took the string hello, we combined it with the space, so now it's just hello space, and then we combined it with world, so now it's hello space world, all one string. And what did it print? Hello space world. So this is basic concatenation. So we can use the plus sign with strings when we're trying to add multiple of them together. All right. So now let's think about the word banana. So we can always, let me actually use that same box because I don't want to confuse you guys. So we can print the word banana. It's a pretty cool word, banana. So what if maybe, I don't know, there would be no reason to do this, but just to show you the power of concatenation, we can do BA plus NA plus NA, and we still get banana. But even cooler, we can even do multiplication with strings. We can do BA plus NA times 2, and that'll give us banana. And it even follows order of operations, okay? So we can only use plus and multiply. Don't try to use division or subtraction or mods or floor divisions or anything like that with strings. It only works with addition and multiplication, because essentially addition is concatenation and multiplication is repeated concatenation, all right? So that's why we can do BA, which is a BA at the beginning, and we can do NA times 2. So NA times 2, basically with repeated addition, is NA plus NA, and NA plus NA is NA, and BA plus NA is just banana. All right, so that's how we do concatenation and multiplication. We can also do something cool. Maybe you're texting someone. We use LOL a lot, right? Maybe you don't. Maybe you think that's weird, but I use LOL. So when we think something is funny, we just type LOL. But maybe if we don't have access to emojis and we think something is really funny, we would, maybe do like LOL times OL times 10. LOL. We sometimes we do that. Maybe you don't, but I do. So this is also something cool we can do with concatenation, right? And I just demonstrated the same thing, multiplying OL times 10 and then adding it to an L at the beginning, and we got LOL, right? All right, so that's how we can combine multiple strings. That answers the question using concatenation. So now the question is, how can I use strings with variables? So this is where it actually starts to get real world. We can use it in the real world, right? It starts to get practical. So maybe we have a website and we want people to enter in their user information and we want to store them in variables, all right? So let's say we have two boxes. We have first name and last name, all right? We have two buckets. Let's say someone named Bob, his last name is Joe, enters his name, enters his first name as Bob and last name as Joe, all right? And now let's say we want to come up with a way that we can send an email using his full name, right? We don't want to say, hey, Bob. Maybe we want to be a little bit more formal. There are a lot of Bobs out there. We want to say Bob Joe. So we have to come up with a way of trying to create a full name using the first name and last name. Well, that's pretty simple. Let's create a variable full name. A full name is just a first name plus a last name, right? All right, if any of you see something wrong I'm about to do, don't worry. I know I'm doing it wrong too. Just keep it in your head. Let's print full name. Oh, we only got one string, right? Well, that's the error. We need to understand that Bob is not going to type a space after his name. He's just going to type Bob. He's just going to type Joe. So in order to really accurately get his full name, we need to do another concatenation. We need to add a space in the middle, and now we have full name Bob Joe. So this is easy. Now when we want to send emails, we just have to say hello full name, comma, right? So we just have a full name variable, and we only use his first name and last name. So now, for example, maybe Robert decided, I think Bob decided that his name's a little bit, that's his nickname, right? Bob is his nickname. Maybe he wants to go by his full name, Robert. All he has to do is change his first name to Robert, and it'll automatically change his full name. So this is demonstrating concatenation and the power of using variables to eliminate repetition. So this is how we can use strings with variables, all right? So now we're going to get into something a little bit more complex, okay? We're going to get into how you can select a specific part of a string. And in Python, we have terms for these. They're called indexing and slicing. All right, so let's talk about indexing first. So I'm just going to go through this chart over here. It might be a little bit confusing for you, but I'll try to make sure I'm helping you understand the best I can. So let's say we have a string, hello world. I want you to think that, imagine that there's no space over here, there's no space over here, but here there is one space, okay? So imagine it's just a string that looks like that, right? So that's what I want you guys to think about when I show you this. Okay, so we have a string, hello world, and now we want to talk about indexing, right? So how are we going to, maybe if we want to select only the W in this word, how do we do that without explicitly typing W? So there must be a way that we can, use the string and specifically decide to take out a W from it. And that's where index positions come in. So as I said in the beginning, a string is just a sequence of characters, and every character has a position. So this is the first character H, but its position is 0. So in all coding languages, it's very common that the first element in any collection or sequence is given the index 0, right? That's something you're going to get used to if you're going to do with computer science world. Every first index will be 0. So if we go through the positions, this is the first character in the string, and it's given index 0. This is the second character in the string is given index 1. So whatever position the character is in the string, it's given a index position that's 1 lower than it. And we even have the space over here that's hidden, that counts the character. A space is actually a character, right? That's maybe something I forgot to mention, but a space is indeed a character. So that is itself also given an index position, 5. All right, so we can see that this is the string, and these are the index positions that match up to it. All right, you might be confused why we need to know that, but I'll show you what's the use for this in a second. So now we have something called alternative positions. They're not really called that, but I call it that because these are used in different scenarios. So we tend to use regular positions when we try to index things at the beginning of a word, okay? It's a lot easier to do that using regular positions. However, if we want to index stuff that comes at the end of the word, it's better to use alternative positions, all right? So just a comparison. So you can see here, whenever we go up by one letter, we're increasing by one index value. So H is 0, E is 1, L is 2, second L is 3. You see we're going up. So we're going this way. Let's see what happens if we decide to go this way. So we go to H, that's index 0. So if we go, okay, we're going back, so that goes to the back end of the word. So behind H is D. So you go from 0 to -1. So it even continues backwards, okay? We can either signify D as index position 10 or index position -1. All right? So that's how we can use positions and alternate positions. So not only is the index value of h 0, but it's also negative 11. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how exactly we're going to use these index positions. So maybe we have the goal of pulling the letter H from the string hello world, right? Let's put it all in a print statement first. Let's say we have a string hello world, like the one I demonstrated above. How are we going to pull the H from it? How are we going to pull the H, or in our case, or Python's case, H is how are we going to pull the 0th index or the negative 11th index? And if we want to pull a specific index or we're dealing with indexes, we just have to use square brackets. Square brackets are right next to P. You don't have to click any shift. They are the box-shaped, the square-shaped brackets. If you put a square-shaped bracket and put the index you want to do, in our case, H is 0, we're going to get H, right? And, like I said, we can even do a negative index. And we still get H. So you can see H is 0 and negative 11. So now let's say, I don't know, let's pull R. So you might think this is a little bit cheating. We have it all laid out here for us. When we're actually dealing with strings in the real world, it's pretty time consuming to make a diagram like this for each of them. So you're going to have to use your counting skills and count up. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I had to count 7 times to get to R, which was index position 8. So if we want to get R, right, we got R for index position 8. But like I said, our goal is to reduce the amount of time to make everything efficient. So that was kind of bad, the way I counted up 7 times to get to R. Maybe it's more efficient to count from the back. So we go from 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. We only have to count 3 times, and now if we type in negative 3, we get R. All right, so this is how we're going to use positions and alternate positions to pull letters or characters from a string. Like I said, it doesn't even have to be a string of words. We can change that R to an exclamation point, and it will pull that exclamation point, all right? So let's say, we want to pull the, actually, we will do that later in the video. That'll be an exercise. All right, so we have hello world. So that's how we're going to pull specific indexes. For example, if I want to pull L, I can do 2, or I can do negative 9, right? So that's just pulling only one of the characters. Oh, by the way, we have a space over here. If I want to pull a space, I can type in a 5. Obviously, nothing will show up because it's a space. So yeah, but like I was saying, we only know how to pull one character at a time. We only know how to pull one L, only one O, only one R. Maybe we want to pull multiple letters at a time. All right, so there's one way to do that, and I want to show you the shorter way to help you understand why there was a faster way created. So let's say we want to pull WOR. How can we do that? Well, let's use our knowledge of indexing and concatenation. So if we're trying to return WOR, if we're trying to return that set of characters right there, let's think about it. So we first have W, that's index position 6. So let me copy paste this because we're going to be using it 3 times. And let's say I want to concatenate it with the next index. And then I want to concatenate it with the next index after that. Now I have WOR, so that we reached our goal, but if you really pay attention, this is literally exactly what we preach against. This is horrible. We don't want to repeat the same long thing 3 times in a row. And then you might even imagine, what if this was way longer than Hello World? It would be a nightmare to repeat 3 times like this. And maybe if we wanted to grab even more than 3 characters, this would be really bad. So Python does have a shortcut for this, which even should not be deemed a shortcut. It's part of the program, all right? So if we want to pull from index position 6 to index position 8, there's a way to do that. So now we have index position 6. All we have to do is put a colon, then type in a 9. So this is how we're going to pull index position 6 to 8. So you might wonder why we typed in a 9 here instead of an 8. So basically, whenever we're putting in the starting position of the index we want to pull, we always put the actual starting position. So if we want to start at index position 6, we're going to put index position 6. However, for the ending index, we always put the index as 1 more than what we want to stop at. So it'll go from 6 up until 9. So once it gets to 9, it won't actually pull index position 9. So if you think about it, it'll pull, okay, index position 6, go up 1, index position 7, go up 1, index position 8, 9. It's not going to pull 9. So all it's going to pull is index positions 6 through 8. And if we run this, we do get the exact same answer. So this is what we call slicing. Indexing is only pulling one at a time. So we pull the W. Slicing is pulling multiple, and it's really a lot shorter than what you just saw over here, right? All right, so now let's pull, let's demonstrate how to select from an index until the end, or actually we'll do from the beginning to a specific index, all right? So there's multiple ways to do this. We can obviously do something like, let's pull from index 0, let's say we want to get hello. Let's pull from index 0 to 4, but remember we have to go one more than 4, so we have to put a 5 there. So we got hello. But, you know, it's also kind of redundant to put the 0 here because we can actually just delete that, put a colon and a 5, and it will do the exact same thing. So whenever Python tries to run this and compile, if it doesn't see anything over here, it'll automatically assume you mean to start at the beginning. All right, and then it will go until the ending index you provided. Same thing goes with when we do the opposite way. What if we want to pull from an index to the end? Let's say we want to pull world. So W is at index 6. So if we just put 6 over here and we don't specify an ending, it will automatically pull everything from index 6 to the end. So that pulls world. So that's how we can do. That's how we can save time by not actually typing the last letter or anything like that, right? There's also one last thing. If you don't put either, what is Python going to think? So if you don't put anything before the colon, it'll think, okay, pull from the beginning. If you don't pull anything after, it'll say, okay, go until the end. So this just returns the whole thing. And you might think that's a little bit weird. Maybe, like, why would you ever do that? And you're about to see why in a second, all right? So let's not talk about hello world anymore. Let's talk about something different, right? Let's see, there's a string that has spaces all throughout it. That's a little bit inconvenient, right? So let's say we want to pull the whole thing. We pull hello, right? But what if we only want to pull the characters that aren't a space, or in this condition, let's pull every other character. What if we only want to slice every other character? How can we select specific parts of strings that aren't next to each other? Well, we can do that by typing another colon and then typing an interval value. So let me explain. So let's look at this carefully. Let me first populate it like this. Let me not actually. That'll make it a little bit more confusing. So what did I do here? So this is hello. Let's read this carefully. When we go from, so let's look at it. So this is before the colon. If we don't specify, they'll automatically say pull from the beginning. After the first colon, if we don't specify, it'll automatically pull to the end. If we add another colon and put a number, this number basically signifies the skipping value, or the interval value, basically saying we will pull this amount of spaces. So we'll pull every 2, right? So out of this, we're going to pull this one, we're going to skip, we're going to go every 2. So this is 0, then we're going to go to 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. So we pulled every 2. And you see, we got it without spaces. So if we don't include that, if we only include this, it's actually going to be default. Python puts it to 1. All right. So if you don't include the second colon and then the number, Python will automatically just put it as :1. All right. So that might be a little bit hard to understand when we're using spaces and letters, but let's look at something cooler. Let's look at the digits. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So remember I said we can put digits as strings, right? So if we call this, we're just going to get the full string. Now maybe let's pull every 2. So if we pull every 2, let's see, we should get the multiples of 2, right? We should get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Indeed, we get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Now maybe let's pull every 3. So if we pull every 3, we should go from index 0 to index 3 to index 6 to index 9. If you press enter, you see we do go from 0, 3, 6, 9. So this is a little bit more easier for you to understand, I think, because we're actually using the string. This is describing itself, and each character is actually describing what position it's located in. So 0 is index 0, 1 is index 1, so this is a lot easier. we put a 4, we should get 4 and 8, which we do. If we put a 5, we should only get 0 and 5 because there's not another, once we go 5 here. If we go another 5, it'll go out of the string. So there's nothing else it can add. So we're only going to get 0 and 5. So that's how we do skipping and adding the second colon to get an interval, to get every n amount of letters. All right. So that's the meat of this video. This was this part using strings and indexing, or slicing and indexing. So there's another cool thing. How can I reverse a string? So print. Let's deal with the string hello world again. All right. So how can we reverse this? So if we think about using the same logic we did up here and using the colons and then a skipping value, let's think about it, right? So here we're going to skip every, let's say we put a 2 here and run it again. We're skipping every 2, right? 2, 4, if we put a 1, we're going forward 1 every time. But maybe we should think about what happens if we put a negative number. What if we put a negative 1? So what's going to happen? It should go forward negative 1. If we're going forward negative 1, that's the same thing as going backwards 1. So we go from 0 to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if we press enter here, that will reverse the string. You see we get hello world backwards. So that is a shortcut to reverse a string. A lot of the interviewers might actually ask you to use some more complicated methods we will learn later in this course to reverse a list or string, but you can kind of be kind of sly by just giving them this answer and saying you can just do it this way. That's how you can reverse a string. So how can you use indexing and slicing with variables? So this is a pretty easy one. Let's say we have a word. Let's say we want to do something where we have a word and we want to run something, and no matter what word we put, we want to change the first letter to a J. So let's just start with a word and assign it Python. All right? We have Python, and let's say we want a new variable called JWord that contains the new value of the word with a J inserted in its first position. So how are we going to do that? Let's think about it. So first of all, we need to understand that we know the word is going to start with a J. So no matter what, we have to put a J. We have to add it to something else. What are we adding it to, though? If we want to replace the P in Python with a J, we have to only add J to this portion. And if we're adding it to a part of a string, that sounds like a slicing problem to me. We want to slice word from the first index to the end, right? That's how we're going to select everything except for the first letter. From the first index to the end, that's how we're going to select everything. So what is this doing? We have a J, and we're adding it to everything except for the first letter of the word. So now if we print JWord, we're going to get Python because we did replace the P with the J by adding a J to the whole word without the first letter. So this is a pretty cool thing. That's how we can use slicing on variables, remember, because all the variable is the word. All right, when we're using a word and then slicing it, all we're doing is basically substituting Python for word, and we're using exactly how we did up here on the string literal, how we used indexing and slicing. Right, so that's the program to convert the first letter of any word to a J. So now I want to give you an exercise. So do the same thing we just did, converting that first letter to a J, except instead of converting the first letter to a J, change the last letter to a B. Right, instead of the first letter to a J, the last letter to a lowercase b. This is an exercise. Pause the video, see if you can figure it out yourself, and I'm going to give you the solution. All right, I'm assuming you paused it, so we're going to start now. So let's, like I said, we're going to do the exact same code. I want to do the exact same code, as I told you to. Right, so we have the same code. So the word is still Python, but how are we going to replace this variable assignment in order to satisfy the criteria of the exercise? So if we want to change the last letter to a B, that means we want to select everything except for the last letter and add it to a B. How do we select everything except the last letter? So we're going to take word, and we're going to go from the beginning. Remember, we're going to go from the beginning to everything except for the last letter. Now, you might be tempted to do something like this. Let's think about it. Well, actually, before we do that, let me lead into this. Let me see what happens if I change this word to Polly, because I want to change it to Jolly, right? So this is going to change, no matter what, the first index of a string will always be the first letter, right? It will always be index 0. You will never have to worry about the first character in a string being index 5. It will always be index 0. But let's look at this. Let's think about, this is Python, right? Let's say we do go that route and hard code it. So what is index n? Let's think about it. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're going to go up until 5. So we're going to select everything except for 5 and add a b to the end. So this is how we would do it specifically for the word Python. So we print J we get Python, right? So now let's think about what happens if we change this to Java, right? And we might get an error. Let's see. Well, actually, let's think about it. We don't get an error because we're indexing everything from 0 to 5, right? And in terms of Python, this is indexing everything from 0 to the end. So when we're doing indexing and we supply something that's beyond the limits of the slice, it will just go up until the end. But if we do something that's longer than 5 words, like, I don't know, gymnasium, we get gymnab. Now that's a little bit weird. Why are we getting gymnab? What happened to the avium part? Well, if we think about it, all we're doing is selecting word up until 5. So we're only selecting up until here, right? And then we're adding a B. So now you might start to realize why we shouldn't have put that 5 there. Because that 5 was only the last letter for the word Python. If we want to make sure that it's working for the last letter of any string, we have to go up and realize we need to use our alternate positions, right? Because the last letter of every string will always have index -1. So now if we do that, we get gymnasium, because the index of any string, the last letter, is going to be -1. So if we go back to that Java thing we did, instead of getting Java, we're going to get Jub, because we're not adding anything to the end, but we're only replacing the last letter with the B. Alright, so I hope you understand what I taught you in this video. We learned about strings, how we can use different characters with strings, how to create strings, escape characters, concatenation, using variables, slicing, indexing, and then using variables for slicing and indexing. So this is just the beginning of strings. Next video, in strings part 2, we're going to talk about methods and functions we can use on strings as shortcuts to use later throughout the course for text-related coding. So stay tuned.